All right, we're going to take you back to New Hampshire, where a press conference is underway after that country club shooting over the weekend. Let's listen.
Preliminary questions for him. It's been adjourned for a probable cause hearing for October. After that probable cause hearing, the case is going to be adjourned to Superior Court, and we'll have 90 days to present indictments against the defendant. Later today, we expect another news release on autopsy results. We don't anticipate any further news releases in the case.
What do you have on a motive at this point, Peter?
That's still being developed. Nashville police are still actively investigating. We're going to actually stop by the police department today to talk to investigators, but motive or motives are still being investigated.
Even though he said Free Palestine and uttered certain concerning phrases, you still don't believe this had anything to do with a hate crime or anything more sinister?
Yeah, we're aware of statements that were reported that he made. The circumstances, whether he actually made them, under what circumstances he made them, are being investigated.
Can you talk about the pattern of what may have happened, kind of the way you understand it, just kind of how it unfolded, so that the public keeps asking questions about it?
Sure. And we are limited in the information we can give. We did provide the court to review a statement of probable cause and statements in support of that statement of probable cause. That has been sealed by court order. So pursuant to that order, we're very limited at the information we can share at this point in time. To the extent in the future we can share additional information, we will certainly do so, and that includes autopsy results, which will be later today. Sir, I think you had a question?
Can you describe what happened?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't go into the details of the actual event.
And the charges still?
Yeah, the charge that exists and why there are not more charges.
So there's one single charge. The defendant was charged with that because under New Hampshire state law, under that single charge, that's a no bail charge. So he's being held without bail because of that charge. We understand and realize there are additional victims. We anticipate there will be additional charges that both relate to those victims who have not been named yet, as well as the murder victim.
And it's still second degree?
At this point, it is second-degree murder.
Why second, not first?
It's second-degree murder because that's the charge that we decided based on the information we had during the course of the investigation. Again, as that further evidence develops and is brought to us, and we can, at that time, assess with all the evidence that we have what appropriate charges to bring to a grand jury within 90 days after the case is transferred to Superior Court.
Are you able to say how the other two victims are doing who were actually shot?
No, I'm not at liberty to say that. I don't want to disrespect their privacy at this point in time.
You don't have a
I don't want to comment at this point in time. One of the injuries is non-life threatening. I would say the other one, the person is stable, but it's significant injuries.
Can you talk about his criminal past?
No, I cannot. Pursuant to my professional obligations, I cannot.
Would you be able to say that motive is still being investigated at this point, or have you solidified that?
No, I think it's being investigated throughout. Again, Nashua still has many people to interview. They've done an incredible job investigating this case, but there are dozens of people present, dozens of people who potentially may have information both as to what happened and also as to other matters that are relevant, such as motive. So the investigators need to continue that. It's only been a few days into the investigation, so they need to continue with that investigation. Once they get all that evidence and present it to us, at that point in time, we take a look at all the evidence and we present to the Attorney General what charges we think are appropriate to bring before the grand jury.
Would you be able to elaborate on the suspect's ties to Sky Meadow?
I believe the Attorney General addressed this yesterday, and I don't really have anything to add beyond that.
How unusual was this attack? How unusual was this attack?
I'm sorry.
How unusual was this attack?
Was attacked.
So I'm a homicide prosecutor in New Hampshire. I deal with homicides, so I really am in no position to say.
Can you say with certainty that this suspect acted alone, or did other people help him in any way before or after the incident?
So with respect to the actual shooting, we're confident that there was only one perpetrator. As to people who may have been involved, who may have known, we're still investigating them.
And are they cooperating with authorities?
When you say they, I don't know what you
Other
mean.
people that you've been interviewing that are connected to the shooter, his family, relatives, friends, I assume they've all been talked to at
Yeah,
this point.
I can say that at this point everybody has been cooperative who has been spoken to by investigators.
Peter, are you able to say at all if any political ideology played any kind of a role into what happened at the country club?
No, I'm not able to say that at this point in time.
Can you discount it?
No, I can't discount it either.
Did the defendant live alone?
That's a little more factual information that I can't get into at this point in time.
Peter, can you just give us some perspective on, a lot of people are just wondering what may have happened. Can you kind of put this case into some perspective of what how it unfolded. I mean, this gentleman walks in and he's shooting people, and then he's saying these things. But can you kind of give a sense of what it is based on what your investigation has found so far?
Yeah. So again, you're going into the details of the crime. Facts have been presented to the judge in support of probable cause for the defendant's arrest. There is a sealing order, and pursuant to that sealing order, we cannot provide additional details at this point in time. To the extent we can, and we expect to do so after indictment, and that's when the investigation should be completed, we can share further information. But at this point in time, again, we don't want to in any way interfere with the integrity of the investigation that is still active and still ongoing.
Were the victims targeted, or were these all random shootings?
That's still being investigated. We have no evidence of that,
No evidence of what?
of targeting.
So these were random shootings at this point, you believe?
I believe so.
He just came in and started shooting anybody.
Again, we're still developing what happened beforehand, what motivated him.
And then can you just talk about the role of the patrons, Good Samaritans, that jumped into action to stop the shooter from hurting anyone else?
Yeah, I can't go into details factually as to what happened, but I think the Attorney General addressed this in a news conference yesterday, that there were civilians who acted selflessly and heroically, and more lives likely would have been lost, and more people would have been injured if not for the selfless acts of citizens like yourselves.
Peter, this case is getting so much attention beyond our area because of the quote that he made, the statement, "Free Palestine," as he was making his getaway. I know you can't get into motive, and this is all still under investigation, but how much weight should people who are paying attention to this at this time in our country, how much weight should we be giving that or any other statement that he said during this event?
Well, I think that's a political question that goes beyond my job as a prosecutor. I think the Attorney General addressed some of this yesterday, and I really don't have anything to add beyond that.
Thank you.
There are no further questions?
Can you describe the resources that you guys are deploying to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. A car went by and my hearing's bad.
Can you describe the resources that you guys have deployed to make sense of this case?
Yeah. So Nashua Police is a fully capable police unit, and they've been doing an extraordinary job. They have asked for some additional assistance from outside agencies, but it's primarily the Nashua Police Department that's investigating this. And again, it's done an extraordinary job, both in dealing with the crisis at hand as it was unfolding, and then investigating it afterwards. And they are the primary investigative agency in this. We are assisting them. Some other law enforcement agencies are assisting them, but it's primarily the Nashua Police Department who's done a great job.
Do you have a total number of victims? How many altogether, regardless of being actually shot?
So right now, I'll just rely on the statement that we gave in terms of gunshot victims, and there is one deceased, and there are 2 gunshot victims who are injured.
I know it's been said that some statements were made, but it's believed that that was possibly just to create chaos. But can you confirm that the statement "Free Palestine" was made?
Yeah, I can't confirm that. Again, this is based on witnesses, and we haven't gone through all the statements of all the witnesses, and there are dozens of witnesses. So until we actually review everything, we're limited in the information that we can provide and that we want to share. Because again, we don't want to be erroneous in information that we provide. If you recall, initially in this case, it was erroneously reported that it was multiple shooters, which turned out not to be the case. So we want to make sure we get not only the right information, but the fair information out there, and that's what we're trying to do through a thorough investigation.
Is there still no indication that this case will be taken over by federal authorities?
I have no reason to believe so.